morning, everyone. I hopefully will not have the same kind of technical issues that we've suffered, but nevertheless, we should be very positive about the future of shipping and the future of seafaring in this country. But let me start by welcoming everyone for being here. Good morning to all of you. And I want to thank SAFETY4SEA and Mr. Balocas for the kind invitation to share some thoughts with you on the future of seafaring during a period that you might say is characterized by advancing technology and global change. At the first Manila Forum set up by SAFETY4SEA in November of 2019, I presented some thoughts then on what I saw as the future of shipping. Now, in the last 5 years, that discussion has completely been overtaken by the technological tsunami that is leading us from the fourth industrial revolution to the fifth industrial revolution and beyond. We have witnessed how advancements in technology have reshaped every aspect of our lives, how these developments have impacted the way we create, we exchange, and we distribute value. From artificial intelligence to genome editing, augmented reality, robotics, even 3D printing. These are just a few examples. Now, these innovations have not just changed industries, they have and will continue to transform institutions and industries and drive systemic change across every fabric of society. So it is therefore crucial for us to understand what kind of a profound impact this era of disruption will have on seafaring. Seafaring, the ancient art of traversing the vast expanse of the seas, has always been intrinsically linked to human progress and exploration. From the earliest voyages of discovery to the modern-day global trade networks, the maritime domain has served as a lifeline for civilizations, connecting distant shores, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and even cultures. Now, against a juggernaut of technological innovation and environmental consciousness that proliferates the global discussions today, we must recognize that seafaring will not be immune to change. We already see advances happening in digitalization, automation, and connectivity. The global effort being assembled on addressing climate change is even now driving an energy transition in ships, mandating the use of green fuels to ensure that the shipping industry is able to live up to its commitment of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. That adds yet another dimension of complexity into this element of the future of shipping and most certainly the future of seafaring. So in a way, seafaring is now finding itself at the forefront of technological innovation. Every aspect of work on ships, life on board, and the development of future ships is impacted and will continue to be impacted in profound ways. And it will be impacted at a rate of change that will potentially happen faster than our ability to currently manage the situation, unless, of course, we change our approach to this industry. We will need to create pathways over the next 26 years into 2050 that will continuously reskill and upskill the Filipino maritime professional and do so in time to ensure that they do not get left behind. From navigation and logistics, safety and maintenance, our global maritime professionals will need to adapt to new roles and new responsibilities. And this requires a concerted effort to bridge the potential skills gaps and ensure that our workforce remains competitive even in the face of automation. Now, that is only one part of the challenge that I see. The other is to be able to attract the best and brightest of the next generations to consider a career in the shipping industry, starting with a career at sea. Individuals must be armed with a program of education that includes science, technology, engineering, and math, to build the competencies that are going to be required for them to compete effectively in a world driven by the fifth industrial revolution. So if we step back from that and we ask the question, so for a country like the Philippines, What does that mean to us, to all of us? I think a starting point would be to fully understand future generations and what their interests are. We know for a fact that many of the Gen Z, X, Y, millennials, everyone has a different perspective on life. But it will be critical that we can connect their aspirations and mindset with what our industry will need to excel in the future. I think another effort that we should consider is to leverage social media platforms, generating what I call 50 million conversations on the several unique aspects of the shipping industry. In one way, I feel that this will help bolster a real awareness of what a career in the shipping industry means and what it means to become a global maritime professional. It is not us in this room that needs convincing. I'm sure we are all convinced about the future of our industry. But we have well over 110 million Filipinos that make up our population, and each year we add at least 1.5 million Filipinos to that count. They are the target that we need to address if we want to look at a future for seafaring. It is to the public and to our government that we need to continue to raise awareness of the critical and strategic importance that the shipping industry has on this country. From job generation to value creation, to bridging all important global and local supply chains that ensure commerce and the economy will continue to grow. That is the role that we have played as tonnage enablers, and that is the role that we can potentially continue to play well into the future. But we need to know how to play the game. We need to help our government develop the policies, rules, and budgetary support for its line agencies involved in maritime. Having the organizational capability to better conduct maritime commerce will go a long way in helping our industry at a time of continuous change. Traditionally, our involvement in providing the seafarer of choice to the world has revolved around recruiting and deployment. The reality that we face today is that there is so much more that is going to be required for us to sustain that position as the seafaring capital of the world. To succeed in this industry well into the future, we cannot be focused simply on recruiting and deployment. The day that there are no more qualified Filipinos or Filipino maritime professionals to deploy is the day that this country will lose its place in the global seascape. But we can overcome this. But we need to create, in my mind, an integrated, clearly defined, strategic supply chain system producing the maritime professional of the future, effectively managing their careers from end to end. Any entity that wants to effectively grow and compete in this industry well into the future must be able to develop at least 3 extensive areas of competency. The first I call talent acquisition. But let's not think of this as just recruiting transaction or a recruitment transaction today, addressing the ready now resources. Rather, let's extend a pipeline to the youngest potentials and expose and educate them on the value of a career in the shipping industry. This is how we can encourage a continuous supply of quality talent for the future. Take, for example, somebody who's 5 years old today. They will not graduate from college for the next 16 years. 16 years from now brings us to the year 2039, 2040. What will the technology on the ships be then? And what kind of people are we going to need to effectively live and work in such an environment? That is the challenge, and that is what I mean by talent acquisition, not just for today, but on a continuous basis. Then comes talent development, which means providing a lifetime of learning and development of skills so that no one ever gets left behind. As an example, our commitment to excellence and our education, our commitment to education through our training arm Philcomsat is collaborating with Nav Guide Solutions to enhance the preparation and performance of vessels and their seafarers during sire, rightship, and port state control inspections. Every little bit of training and continuous training will help us maintain the ability to compete effectively in the future. And this approach, these type of approaches, will effectively drive continuous transformation of the individual, which in turn should minimize such skill gaps that may surface because of advances in technology. The third item, talent deployment. Essentially defining a progressive career path to a future that will be part of a people, process, and technology mindset, a paradigm that we need to bring to our industry and the way we manage into the future. Consider, for example, how many OSs and ABs do you know who have been around for years, who have been around for 30 years? Is that what we really want to have? An OS or an AB, yes, successful, but continues to just be an OS and an AB? Or a wiper, or a motorman, or a fitter? In the era of new fuels, are we going to need a wiper, an oiler, or a fitter? On the other hand, if we want to attract the next generations into this industry, can we hold up a sign that says we are looking for ordinary seamen? Who wants to be ordinary? Who wants to be called an ordinary seaman? We need to also consider that titling is an important way of attracting people into this industry, and that is something that we need to be engaged with, not only at our level, but at the global level, where others converge. At the very core of such a strategic supply chain, we really must think of the ability to produce quality seamanship in every current and future global maritime professional, every Filipino global maritime professional. And if you think about it, seamanship is one word, but the implication of the word being a good seaman and having good seamanship is very critical to how we will operate in the future. And equally important is developing true leadership, qualities that can effectively address the following. For example, safety consciousness. We need to be able to build in our leaders that kind of consciousness in attitude and mindset driven by this idea of together in safety, unleashing the power of collaboration in getting things done. It's interesting to note that while safety-related accidents have significantly been reduced over the years, they haven't gone to zero. In fact, if you look at the number of, say, annual accidents reported by the Paris and Tokyo MOUs and the US Coast Guard, that figure has plateaued, as you can see in this graph. Why is that so? Should we not be striving to get to zero accidents as an environment or a mindset? I don't think it should be the case that we should end up accepting that we can live with many accidents. Remember, one life lost is one too many. Anytime there is a maritime accident, inevitably, the concern of people, of the public, is the pollution that hangs over our heads that can be caused. We know very well the backlash from the public. Last year's sinking of the MT Princess Empress is a grim reminder of the risks associated with shipping. Another hot topic, decarbonization. That is clearly front and center today. And we, each of us, need to take the lead in all of our organizations, driven by growing societal demands for achieving zero emissions sooner rather than later. The move to adapt green fuels will require a better knowledge of basic science and the skill sets to work in more hazardous environments. Both of these developments really require a greater mental discipline towards safety. So the challenge for us as a country is, how do we anticipate a future that is greener on board? How do we transform the existing pool of Filipino global maritime professionals and arm them with the requisite skills to remain employable over the next 20 years? And for those coming through the schooling system over these same next 20 years, what kind of gap in skills will they be faced with? The inability to address such gaps in skills and competencies will result in Filipinos no longer having that competitive edge over other nationalities. While we await global decisions on what the final combination of green fuels will be to power our ships, there are options. LNG, and that's a transition fuel not just over the next 5 years, but most likely through 2040. And then there's ammonia and hydrogen. But even while we wait, there are immediate interventions in seamanship that we can start with today. An example is promoting enhanced navigation and vessel handling, techniques that can boast a ship's energy efficiency. Just on that effort alone, we can potentially reduce greenhouse gases and their emissions by about 10%. A third aspect to consider, eliminating waste. We have to continue to drive productivity by merging the physical and the digital. This is what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. Eliminating waste is another way of driving for a sustainable future through effective and appropriate consumption. Waste not, want not. And this is where the idea of better seamanship and true leadership, these are characteristics that we should see in our current and future Filipino global maritime professionals. And they can do it. They have proven it. But we must continue to be on that pathway to never be left behind. At the first SAFETY4SEA Manila Forum in 2019, I posed these questions to the audience. Are we in the Philippines ready for this kind of a future? Are we as individuals, as companies, as institutions, both private and public, are we ready for this kind of change? Are we ready and willing to change ourselves? These remain critical issues as we face an ever more daunting future driven by global shipping's commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. A case in point in that regard is the preparedness of the Philippines to ensure a just transition for its maritime professionals, incorporating the energy transition to net zero. Can we successfully promote an education transition towards a more STEM-based system of studies? Can we drive an overall progressive transition of the whole of government and the whole of society towards what we think is a sustainable future? We can either disrupt what we are doing today or be disrupted and find ourselves out of this industry in the future. This time around, the train to the future has not only left the station, but it is also speeding rapidly ahead to its next destinations. And if we don't get on that train today, we will not only miss the opportunity again, but we may miss this entire boat, and I don't mean it as a pun. If we are to maintain the Philippines and our status as the seafaring capital and the Filipino as the seafarer of choice. SAFETY4SEA prides itself in its mission to promote safer, smarter, and greener shipping. For the Philippine maritime industry and for all of us to move forward together, we must try and foresee what this future will be like and what kind of talent we will need to produce. Not only through 2030, into 2040, and finally onto 2050. Yes, we may not be all around then, but the foundations that we lay today will be helpful to allow us to compete effectively. And after all, at the end of the day, we have been involved as a country in this industry for well over 40 years, well over 50 years. What are we going to do for the next 40 years or 50 years to allow other Filipinos to enjoy the same benefits that all of us have been able to enjoy as being a provider, a tonnage provider to the world? So let me end with a similar call to action that I gave in 2019. We need to be ready to renovate. We need to be ready to evolve. We need to be ready to transcend our mindsets. And not only do it once, but to continue to evolve, continue to renovate, and continue to transcend ourselves. This mindset will define the future not only of shipping, but really the future of seafaring in the Philippines. And it will ensure that a Filipino global maritime professional will be able to sail on every vessel in every sea to move the world well into the future. Thank you very much.